Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Ask a DM, the show where we take your questions and answer them with a guest DM. And today I am joined by Josh from Dungeoneer's pack, who I'm just going to bring onto the screen now. Hey Josh, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Thank you for
If you
having
just
me.
want to introduce yourself so people know who you are, that'd be great.
All right, I am Josh from Dungeoneer's Pack. My channel is mainly focused on player focused discussions and character guides and builds to help you and inspire you to make any type of character you kind of want. I don't necessarily do DM content, but I do DM. So it'll be nice to switch it up just a little bit and talk about what I do as a DM today.
And if you are in the live chat, if you do want to ask us a question, if you just put the word question at the beginning of it so we know that you're talking to us and not to each other, that would be great. And if you're watching this after the fact, if you put any questions down in the comments below, I'll make sure to get back to them next week in episode 3 of Ask a DM. So make sure to do that. But yeah, we take questions from Twitter, from my Discord channel, and from the YouTube comments. So we've got quite a few today. But first off, Josh, I just want to ask a few questions so people know what sort of DM you are or what sort of player you are as well. So first off, when you DM, do you DM pre-written campaigns or do you usually homebrew your campaigns?
You know what? When I started playing and actually picked up the DM side of stuff, I did a lot of homebrew. Now I'm strictly play out of the book. I don't have a lot of time, so it's easier for
Okay.
me to look at the book and then kind of just shape the book around my players. So
Okay, so you would sort of look at the book, but then change it a bit depending on what you think is better, and go with it like that, a bit
yeah,
more freeform.
big thing is like I like to personalize the experience. I know with campaign books, it's kind of like a set story,
Mm.
but I think even with the set story that you have a lot of like right now I'm running Avernus, so like there's a lot of leeway in that book to make the game and fit it and tailor to my players. So we're having a lot of fun dealing with the devils, demons, and other extra planar stuff I'm throwing at them.
Nice. And so, do you usually incorporate quite a lot of the backstory of the players into the campaign
Yeah,
and get, sort of
yeah,
interweave it a lot?
yeah. That is like the big thing we're doing right now. I run a big group. I have like 7 players right now, so each of them getting their time to shine. And the only if the book or something suggests a certain thing, I do take that into heavy consideration. But like starting out, Avernus was one of those things where I needed to have the players be more thematically fit. We're used to kind of just playing as even on the player side of it. We would play, we were just like we're just going to take this a character ID and jam it into the game and not necessarily have it thematic. So this time around, I was like, hey, you guys are going to go hunt devils. I need you guys to make characters that want to go kill devils. So
Yeah,
yeah.
makes sense. So, what's the longest campaign you've DM'd and the longest one you've played in?
Longest one I've DM is actually this one. So it is Avernus. Normally I'm always a player, so I've DM'd a couple times, but it normally doesn't last too long because either I want to move on to the other thing or I get the itch to play something. Um,
Okay.
but so this one's the longest one, and we've had I want to say we're nearing 20 sessions now. So I have a feeling sometime next year this will wrap up. And the longest one I've played, it was about a year, almost 2 years. We played actually 2 campaigns, a Storm King's Thunder. So that was like our first real campaign where we finished. That was about almost 2 years. And then we did a Ravnica campaign from levels 1 to 10. And
Oh,
that one
cool.
lasted about a year and a half.
Nice. It's interesting because I get it the other way, where if I'm a player for too long, I get the itch to be a DM again. I I think I like the creative, so we're sort of the opposites in that respect. And so, out of all of the books that you have either DM'd or played in, then what's your favorite so
uh,
far?
the one I've honestly, I think, it's hard. Like to play in, there was like 2 characters that just resonated with me. That when I played, one was the Storm King's Thunder game, where I played my artificer, but at the time the artificer was terrible. It was the pre-Ebron one, so it was just
Yeah.
the thunder gun one, and it was terrible. But it allowed me to figure out how to understand the game and actually economy and having to actually do things that actually made more impact in the game besides just trying to shoot the gun.
Mm.
So that character always has a special place and really getting me to get in touch with the game of D&D.
Mhm.
But in terms of character, I think in the game that I had the most fun and resonated with was a Ravnica campaign. It was a homebrew because all my buddies are Ravnica. We're all Magic the Gathering fans, so playing in that
Cool.
game, playing my Goblin Kensai monk for the Boros Legion, and then having him die on top of that too. It was just like, but the character just resonated in with me, and I always want to bring him back whenever I can.
That's probably a good question. How do you stand on character death? Is it like would you fudge a dice roll to save a character if you knew the player was going to be upset about it?
Oh, this actually just popped up this last week, a session ago. One of my players, I put it on the table from the get go. Death is going to happen. You guys are going to hell, and where you guys are in Vernus, devils don't care. You're going to fight demons. Demons really don't care. If they can get a one up on you, they will. And from the get go, that happened. And I put a relatively hard encounter, but for 6 to 7 people, they should be fine. But they downed it was a Rune Knight ASMR fighter. I downed him. They got a potion, popped him back up, and kept whack-a-mole him. But eventually, I swarmed him. But I told the player, "Hey, just trust me. Trust me. I have a bigger plan. I didn't really want to kill his character off. I just wanted to start another arc, tying his ASMR guide, because the ASMRs tend to have a guide, a spirit guide, angel guide that they have in their backstory or part of their racial, and into it to get him to his next big grand arc for his character." So I killed his character. And then, he got frustrated, ripped his character sheet immediately after he told me he was fine prior to that. And then we're like, okay, well, we can't have a character anymore because you ripped the sheet. So it's just one of those things. I learned that even if you play with a group of people for a very, very long time, and there is a level of trust, you still need to talk and let them know, hey, like, you want to do this thing, but it's not necessarily in terms of like just character death. I'm okay with it as long as it's going to serve a story purpose. So on the player side, my character, my goblin, who pretty much was the de facto leader of the group, pretty much their soul, their moral compass, trying to help them save the city of Ravnica, died. My DM didn't want him to go, but I straight up said no. I'm like, look at the RP opportunity. Somebody has to fill that void now. Who steps up as leader? Now his friends I just closest to, what do they do now? Know that he's not there. Who are they going to go after? Where are they going to get revenge and stuff? So I'm okay if it serves a story purpose. I'm perfectly fine, and especially if a DM talks to me about it, I'm good. And it's one thing I too, as a novice EDM, that I need to do a better job of actually saying, hey, like, I want this to happen. This is going to happen. Are you okay with it?
I think that's a really good one-line summary of that. As long as it's a story purpose, story-driven purpose, character deaths can actually be one of the best parts of a campaign. I've had a few campaigns where a character death has become very emotional, and like it set the story off in a completely different direction, and then they sort of hated the big bad a little bit before then, and then that happened, and then they actually really hated it. So that's good. Okay, let's get into the questions. I see that Rich is in the chat, and I feel like there's supposed to be a punchline with this one, but I'm waiting on Rich to finish it off. How many paladins does it take to screw in a light bulb? You tell us, Rich, what the punchline is. We'll wait to hear that from you. Okay, so first up is from IG Vital, I think is how you say that. And that is, do you think that every class must have enough subclasses that totally or almost totally makes multi-class unnecessary? So there was a bit more to this, but I had to shorten it so it would fit on the screen. He or she were basically saying, like, there's the Blade Singer, which then makes there's no point in doing a Wizard Fighter subclass, and then there's the Rune Knight where there's no point doing it the other way and stuff like that. So what do you think on that?
I'm perfectly fine with this. The big thing, I like when they do these sort of more flavorful or like hybrid classes, so that you can play certain play style without having to multi-class, because there is some detriments to multi-class if you don't properly do it. There's certain level expectations you need to hit certain power levels in the game. So pretty much you're good at multi-classing on generally most classes after level 5. Certain classes you need to hit 6 or 7, but most of the time it's level 5. And stuff like Blade Singer, Hexblade, Eldritch Knight, Arcane Trickster, what's it called, the Psy Warrior, etc. All these hybrid sort of classes or subclasses let you not have to do that and let you not have to worry, and you still get to play your character without having to have to worry about that level of optimization. I'm okay with it. I know some people like that, being able to like pick and choose, but I think this is a good direction to take. 5th edition rewards you for sticking with a class. And
I completely agree. I'm also sort of in the boat that might ruffle some feathers, that the more there is out there, the better, because as a DM and as a group, you can pick and choose. Yeah, like if there's 100 subclasses from Barbarian, yes, that would be annoying to have to read through and work it out. But in theory, you don't have to allow your players to have 100 subclasses. You could just pick 5 that you go with, that your favorite 5. But I agree. It makes it easier as well from a player point of view to be able to pick exactly the type of character they want without having to be like, okay, well, I need to dip 1 into Rogue to get this, 2 into Bard to get this, and so on and so forth. So I'm okay with it. Hopefully everyone else is. We got How to D&D here as well, saying hi to you, Josh. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, Fred?
For coming by. And Rich has finished off the rest of the joke. 1, they hold it up and the world revolves around them. That was pretty terrible, Rich. And I will not be putting your jokes up on the screen anymore. But the next question is actually from Rich. So he sent this one in. So we also have sort of touched on this. So as a DM, if there was a potential TPK, would you fudge the dice roll? So that's a bit different than what we were talking about.
I have no problems with fudging the dice. I normally roll open, but there are certain situations I know in the past where I've DM'd here and there, like I've done it all behind the screen. I have no problem fudging dice. I'm more story narrative driven as a DM. I know like there's 3 DMs in my group, and we all have drastically different DM styles. I'm way more character and narrative driven. Another of my buddies is much more mechanical and tactical, so we know what kind of characters we need to bring to that. And then another, the one that DMs the most is kind of a blend of both, and it's a very much yes and sort of game where we can go off the rails 100%. No, and we just have fun. But all of us, I think I'm the one that's actually, of all things too, that's had more character deaths in our group than the rest of the other 2. I think they're more lenient than I am. In this Avernus campaign, I've had 2 deaths already. One was, I think I will take ownership of it, and it's my mistake. The first one was the player mistake, where they went off by their own, and monsters are going to monster and take them out if they're by themselves. So
RIP. Yeah. I think so. For me, I actually quite rarely fudge dice rolls, and because of what we were speaking about earlier, if a character death was going to happen, I would allow it to happen, and then I would put some sort of story beat in and run with it on the story. But a TPK is a bit different, because it's hard to kill every single party member and then continue the story on, unless it's quite a hard thing to do. So I might fudge the dice roll if I was like, this is actually going to be a problem. But I prefer, rather than fudging dice rolls as such, I prefer to have a sort of ace in up my sleeve situation, where like a powerful NPC will swoop in and save them, or an event will happen where they're saved, rather than fudging dice rolls. And I think I've got enough experience now to know quite early on in combat if it's going to go badly, so I don't have to then get to the point where I'm fudging dice rolls because it's going bad. So
I think in terms of like TPK, I know like with Avernus right now, there's a lot of extra planar deities that are involved with what's going on in that game. So for me, like you said, like it's very easy to have the hand of God to come in and just be like, nope, we're gonna stop this and we're gonna give you guys a redo. Or another thing is like if you're playing, say there's a bunch of bandits and stuff. The bandits, if they TPK are going to come close to TPK, they might just see that the group is not worthy or not even a challenge, so they could just like be like, yeah, we're done. We don't have to deal with you. We'll take your stuff and just leave you there.
Mm.
A lot of different ways you can handle it.
Yeah, definitely. So the next one, I guess, is a two-part question. First, do you use minis? Do you actually have many minis amongst your group?
Yeah. We are on a big Hero Forge kick, so almost all of our characters are at least personal characters are Hero Forge. But that's pretty much as it goes for minis.
So you don't have
Harder.
many monsters and stuff like that.
Not a lot, unless it's like the big important ones. My buddy that normally DMs, he brought a big old box of devils and demons, so we've been using that for the awareness game. But for more general enemies, I have a bunch of dry erase white tokens that are like
Okay.
different sizes, and just drop them on there, number them, and then use them for the initiative. It's a lot easier.
Okay. So the question was, how do you store your minis then? But I guess if you've only got a few, you just leave them in a box, do you?
Yeah, behind this green screen behind me, I have a shelf. There's all my little personal ones are right on there, while the rest of them are
Okay.
kind of stored
So
in a
you put
box
them
in a closet.
Nice. I've got a it's like a drill bit box. I'm not sure what they would be called in the USA, but it's like a mini toolbox that has loads of little compartments for different screws and drill bits and stuff like that. And that's where I store my minis because I have a problem. I have lots of them. I have a dice problem and I have a mini problem, so I get quite a lot of them, and that works pretty well for me and keeps them all nice and safe. Okay, so we got was it Fred from How to D&D has come in asking, do you think a game can be heavily story based without fudging dice? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think that's more like a session zero sort of thing. And I think experience playgroup may also be able to help out with that too, where you're going to let the dice dictate how the story is going to go and still be story based. It's just you're going to change your decisions based off what the dice say. And obviously for newer players, it's going to be a lot harder for them to do, and also newer DMs to pivot this way too, just because they have this general idea of what the story should be, and maybe taking ideas or examples they've seen from other media like Critical Role stuff. They think it's supposed to be set one way, but obviously the dice are going to be dice and dictate other thing, and it just over time they will develop that ability to just be like, well, I fail. How do I turn this failure on the dice into a story point and build off of it? And that's just one of those things. It can happen. It just takes time. And especially if you play with the same group over and over again, it's one of those things you guys will develop.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, that experience matters in this case. I remember early in my D&D career playing in a game where essentially, to make it a bit more basic, there was a left and a right choice. We chose to go right, but the DM actually wanted us to go left. So just put a straight up roadblock right and just did not let us go right and forced us to walk back the other way and go left. And I think that's sort of okay when you're a new DM and you're sort of trying to understand it a bit better. But as you become better as a DM and become more experienced, if there is something that happens like that, or a dice roll goes badly and they don't get what they need to progress the story in the way you thought they were going to, you can sort of riff on the spot and go, and in between sessions actually make it into a full-fledged story. That's a good little tip as well. If there's any new DMs out there, you don't have to make everything up on the spot. If you have got to a point and something has gone completely awry and you don't have a clue what's going on anymore, feel free to stop the session, even if it is like little bit early, and just be like, look guys, I need a week or however long it is to work out what impact this has, and then go from there.
I
definitely.
Yeah, improv is not an easy skill, especially there's a lot of stuff that it's involved. I'm getting more into just improving on the spot now, but it's something it takes time to develop and just to react. And and it takes a certain part of your brain, I could say, like, to be able to interact and think on the spot. And I'm not always the fastest, so yeah, I recommend that what you said too. Like sometimes just take either stop the session early, or even I saw WebDM say this a while ago in one of their older videos. It's okay to take a break, like a food break, a restroom break, while your party does that. You know, you flip through your book, you flip through whatever you need to kind of figure out what you need to do if you need to replan the session itself.
Yeah, definitely. And as you get higher in levels as well, that's going to happen more. Like, especially if you're crazy enough to DM a level 20 campaign, then you know they've got stuff like Wish and Plane Shift and stuff. You have to be good at improvising because, well, God knows what the players are going to do at that point. So, yeah, okay. So, what do you keep behind your DM screen while you're DMing?
Pretty much, I don't even have a DM screen. I just have a laptop, so that would be my de facto DM screen. I have Notion.so. I use that to kind of keep track of all my my campaign. On that itself, it's just a small section or tab in there that keeps track of every session, a little database that keeps track of the players, so I can kind of link them into the session, and another database for NPCs, important NPCs and personal NPCs and factions for the players. So it's just a nice little way to organize everything, so I can kind of keep track and click. It kind of acts like a wiki at times too, where you can kind of click to go to another article or another area. So that's pretty much it. And then my dice and my tokens, and that's all I run.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I use laptop, and I've got a notepad and dice. And that's pretty much it behind my DM screen. How to D&D has also said, I'm 50 years old and been playing for a long time with the same people. Nice answer. I hope I'm still playing with the same people when I get to 50. That would be nice. God knows what D&D will look like then.
Yeah.
A bit of different landscape. I do like the magic of playing with a new person and that moment when they realise they can do what they want.
Yeah.
There's always that sort of they've got the video game mind on where they're like, oh no, okay, he's put this together and we're supposed to go this way and do this thing, and then they'll say, oh, can I actually climb up and look through this window instead of going through the front door? And I'm like, yeah, of course you can. And then they're like, oh, I can do whatever I want in this game.
Yeah,
I do enjoy that.
Currently have a player that's like that, where he's very, very much World of Warcraft background experience, plays it on a regular basis, and is trying to do things he would do in that game in D&D. And then it's more so I straight up tell him, because there's been a couple times where he's like, well, I'm not good at this skill. And I said, doesn't matter. Is your character good at like, would your character want to do that? So they're like, yeah. I'm like, then roll.
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt trying.
This question sort of semi times in. So Dan Senator, I think is how you say that, asked, how do you feel with bandwagon skill checks? So this is when someone tries a nature check and fails, and then the other players are all like, oh, can I have a go?
One, I think it's more of a tool of prevention. If you really, really, as a DM, need your players to have that information, I say don't even bother having them roll. Find a way narratively to explain how they might know that information, whether it's something they might know in their background, or maybe if they recall something from an NPC. Other than that, if I know I need a group of people, if it's a group check or something, that's when I normally have the skill check. It's every once in a while I'll have it so that they have another chance, and I only give one other person the opportunity to pretty much get on top of it. And normally I will dictate who that person is depending on what I know of their character and their background, and if it makes sense. That's the best way to deal with that, because I have a lot of characters in the Avernus game right now that are tied to the celestial planes, the higher planes, to Torm more specifically, and then I have a couple tied to actual archdevils. So depending on how those interact, I will decide which one of those people will get to be able to do the thing, the skill check. Yeah,
that's I don't think I've actually heard that before about just allowing them like one reroll, because I feel like people either fit into no, you can't do bandwagon skill checks, or yeah you can all have a go.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's quite a good idea actually, just allowing them to have one depending on what it is. I actually had it recently where someone was trying to pick a lock, and we've got quite a few different people who could pick locks in the party. And yeah, they failed, and then the next one tried, they failed, next one tried, they failed. And we ended up sitting there for 4 people trying the pick lock, and I was like, this is it's okay, but it's probably not ideal. There's probably a better way I could have dealt with it. But yeah, that's cool. Right. So Ross Bateman asked, how would you go about suggesting your players should run instead of standing and fighting? So if there's a situation where you as a DM know they've got a bit deep and are probably going to die if they keep fighting, how would you go ahead suggesting they stop?
If they don't get the narrative hints, that's, I think, the big thing is at first try to give like the big narrative hints, and if your players aren't receptive of it, then I think it's okay to like break the story tension a little bit and be like, hey, this is a hard fight. I don't think you guys are going to survive this. If we continue, which you guys are perfectly well to decide to think you guys can do this, it's going to result in that, and we can roll up and we can play it out, roll the different game, or they get to decide at that point. I think part of the thing is, obviously with 5th edition and just how Critical Role and every other media of D&D we've kind of seen now, it's very narrative driven, so you don't want to break the immersion. But it's still a game, so it's okay to just be like, hey, like, we're here for a good time. This might result in a bad time. Are you guys sure? Do you guys want to do this? And and then just have that talk. It's okay to break the immersion of the game if it's for the betterment of your play group.
Yeah, I mean, Rich has said as well that sounds like the Venom Fang problem, which I believe is the dragon from Lost Mines of Fandelver, if I remember rightly. Which, yeah, you're supposed to not fight that, but a lot of people do. I think how I do it, it's the same way you do in that, always narrative first, like give them narrative hints. But I try to subtly be like, oh, just to remind you guys, you can run if you want to. You don't have to fight. And that usually seems to get them to be like, oh, okay, he's trying to give me a hint here that this isn't for fighting, and we should probably think of a different way of dealing with this. And that usually seems to work as well. And then, if that still doesn't work, then you're right, just outright saying, look, I don't think this is gonna work. You need to do something, or there's going to be a TPK. Rich has just checked in as well. What's your favorite dragon type?
Favorite dragon type? I'm waiting for Fizzbands to come out. The two out of there that I'm like, those are going to be my new favorites. The Elder Brain Dragon. That is wicked. That thing is wicked. Just visually, like, that thing's scary. Like, I don't just throw that. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to throw that in the Avernus game, and I'm just going to throw that at my players and just like, it's there, into hell, figure it out. Like, and then the Beholder Dragon that they had, I thought that was cool. There's a Beholder Dragon where in the mouth of the dragon is actually a beholder's eye. So those are probably my two new favorites. In terms of classic dragons, gem dragons, because they're a little different than the standard chromatic and metallic.
I'm just going to chuck this up so people can see it. That's the Elder Brain Dragon that's going to be in Fizzband's Treasury of Dragons, which looks absolutely horrifying, and but also going to be great fun to throw at your players. So
one of my players is in the chat right now, so
don't say too much. I did a streamed game where I used gem dragons that I statted up. So they have a bit of a soft spot in my heart, because the whole I say campaign, it was only 8 sessions, little mini adventure really, but the whole thing was based around an obsidian dragon, which is something we haven't actually seen statted up yet. I assume we will in this new book, but I might be wrong. Out of the ones that are in the monster manual, it's probably a green dragon. I just like the idea of it, deception rather than brute force with a dragon, and that they're a bit more snake-like.
I think classic dragon, I think it has to be the red. The classic red is just what you would expect out of a dragon. Like,
kill power.
I
assume that's your player.
Complaining
about an Elder Brain coming in. Elder Brain Dragon. Okay, right. So IG Vital again has asked another question. What other classes would you like to add to the 13? Not only the Blood Hunter. Is there any other class that you would like to see?
I want to see a non-magical intelligence-based class. I think there's enough room for it. Artificer sort of could have been that, but I understand why, because it needs to be fantasy based. But I think some sort of a tactitional sort of intelligence based class would help round out and also give us like a third intelligence intelligence based
Mm.
class. And but especially if they're not based in magic, would I think it would be an interesting push in design. Some like a warlord. I think who had it? Ian World Publishing. They had a class in there, and on a supplement they released for fifth edition, where it was a class that was called the Noble. But their whole thing was they had multiple subclasses in there. One was a tactician, where they were able to use their action to help or to have another player attack. So they never attacked; they would ask another player to attack. And then some of the subclasses let you attack. Other ones were hyper pacifists. It was interesting, but I think something that was like that's a cross between a rogue bard and some sort of tactician would work really really well.
Yeah, I've seen someone talking about, I can't remember who it was, and that's going to annoy me because I like to give props to people, but I think someone has recently made a sort of like the elderly kung fu person you would see in kung fu who are like teaching the young person how to do kung fu. They made a class around that idea of like someone who's been a fighter, been a warrior for ages, but is now unable to do it because of their body, but then still comes along, and it's all about maneuvering people, the other players about, and stuff like that, which I think is quite a unique idea. Well, but yeah, I'm the same. I would like to see more intelligence classes. I think Artificer was a nice addition because you couldn't really make something out of it.
Yeah,
I would like to see a bit more out of it. I think so. Hopefully, later books will add more subclasses and stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah. The big thing for artificer I want them to see is more subclasses based around the tools, since that's supposed to be the tool magic class. So I would love them to expand on like all the tool sets in the player's handbook and turn those into subclasses. Like I want to see like an artist, like either like a tattoo artist, artificer, or something like that. That
yeah,
uses like art supplies and the ink and the calligraphy supplies and stuff.
yeah, that would be cool. Out to D&D has asked, have you ever used Woolly Story Cubes or Game Mastery plot twist cards to help learn to improvise during a game? Do you know what either of those are?
I've seen like story cubes. I might be those. Those might be the ones I've seen, but I've never heard of the plot twist card. Yeah, okay, yeah, I've seen the story cubes and stuff. I haven't. For me to improvise on the spot, no. Mainly my improvisation on the spot is really just pulling from the character's background. So that's one thing I always ask is like at least have some sort of background for your character, and I'll just pull from that and slowly weave it so I know if I need to just draw from that to like add to improvise on the spot. I will do it, and that's pretty much what a lot of what my game goes based off of.
Yeah. So
Is that.
just in case people don't know, so I also haven't actually heard of the Game Mastery plot twist cards, but story cubes. The idea is you roll all of these dice, and then you try to make a story out of it. And I've not actually used it during a game, but I have done this to make a one shot before. I rolled these dice and made a one shot out of it. But yeah, I haven't done it mid game. I haven't rolled the dice and then made something out of it. And yeah, I've never actually heard of the Game Mastery plot twist cards. They look like this. I assume the idea is you draw a card and it says something happens, and it can be good or bad, and you go with it, which can be quite fun. I don't know if I'd do that for a campaign, but yeah, for one shots and stuff, it would be good for, as you said, for learning how to improvise if that is something that you're struggling with. So yeah, they're good things if you're struggling.
Those are really really good tools, especially like Rory story cubes. I've seen that a lot where it's mainly like one shots. You just roll them up before and then just plot it out that way.
Yeah, go with it. Hats D&D also said that there was a 4E intelligence-based tactical class called the Warlord, which I believe I've read, but I can't remember too much about it. But yeah, it's pretty much what I'm hoping for in 5E, maybe.
Yeah, I've
maybe
heard
6E. Yeah.
I've heard about this one. I played like 4E like once. Don't really remember it. But yeah, I remember seeing this pop up, and I see it always come up in conversation. But a lot of what happened with the Warlord, they brought into the fighter now with like the Battle Master and stuff,
Yeah,
which is cool, but also a little unfortunate because yeah, another intelligence based class that doesn't use magic would be sweet.
yeah, I agree. And got random 2872, which I believe is one of your players, saying for a
Yes.
new player that doesn't that know exactly nothing of the D&Ds, what class and race would you suggest for them to as a way to dip their toes in, and what campaign would you run outside of a homebrew setting?
Campaign is pretty easy. I would say Lost Mines of Fendover. It's just solid intro, get you kind of your feet wet into D&D. Period. Even the expanded rules edition, or not the expanded rules edition, the other box set that they released that also has you playing in Fandolin, and then adds on that those two were probably like your best bet to like really learn the intro levels of the game. In terms of class and race, I say there's no limits for new players. I don't. They're going to have to learn to interact with the game in a certain way. So the best way for them to do it would just be pick the idea that best resonates with them. I know there's a lot of stuff. I know early on in the YouTube space, and then in early videos, everybody was like, "Oh, fighter, fighter dwarf, fighter half orc, just fighter would be the best way." I don't agree. Started playing with a fighter, but I didn't really learn the game until I played a wizard. And where I should have just played the wizard from the get go. And then yeah, my brother, he learned how to play using a monk. Like everybody just picked in my group just picked a different class that wasn't necessarily simple to really figure out how to play the game, and it's just whatever resonated with them when they read the book and be like, I want to play that. That seems cool. I think that's a better approach to figuring out how to play.
Yeah, I completely agree. I always say if someone's struggling to make their first character, to loosely base it off of someone from media.
Yeah.
So if you really were into the Witcher, for example,
Yeah.
so okay, well let's make the Witcher, because in that way it's also easier when there's role play situations and you're like, what would your character do? They can think, okay, what would the Witcher do?
What you do?
What would blah blah do? It makes it all a bit easier. I think some of the classes are a bit harder to learn, but you're completely right. If you want to play D&D for the long term, you're going to have to sort of understand how the game works, and that involves spellcasting and barbarianness and stuff like that. Anyway, but I don't think any of them are so difficult that you should shy away from it on your first turn, on your first go. So yeah, I would pretty much agree. And How to D&D saying that there's also the Dungeons and Dragons Essential Kit, which is also good. But yeah, I've also ran the Lost Mines of Fandelver, and it is a very good little adventure.
Yeah. So Lost Mines and the Essentials Kit, which is I think the Dragon of Icespire Peak, I think that's the name of it. Yeah, then they'll pretty much either of those are like really good intro into D&D. I recommend both of them.
And Rich also saying that he would like to see a full alchemist int-based class, which, yeah, I completely agree. They've obviously added a bit in the artificer, but it would be quite cool to see a full alchemist.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be, I don't think it'd be too hard to make. I know, what was his name? Dawnforged, YouTuber, made one a while back, as well as a shaman class. I'm not sure. I haven't seen him on YouTube for quite some time, so I'm not sure what he's doing. But he used to have a website where you could buy them. So if you did want an alchemist in base class, check them out if they are still around. I'm not sure if they are. I'm afraid though. Okay, on to the next one. So do you buy hard book covers or digital books, or both?
As a content creator, both. It hurts my wallet, it hurts my heart. But yeah, I need both. I prefer hardcover books, mainly because I like to physically own them. My big issue with any sort of digital media is at any point if where they are storing that or they lose the license goes out, or you lose access to it. So we were playing Roll20 for a while, so I started getting more of the digital stuff, and then running my channel. Like I needed it to start writing scripts at least earlier. So that's why I have both, but I still just prefer the hardcover. Unless they burn my books down, then they can't get rid of it.
I was a book person as well until the whole lockdown fiasco hit and started playing online, and then I just found it a bit easier using D&D Beyond to run the games because I was using Foundry VTT and you can just import it straight in. So stuff like that just made it a bit easier. So the last few books I've actually only got digital. I haven't actually got the hard cover books. I also try to buy the books from game stores, so I get the special cover, and obviously to support the game stores rather than Amazon. So yeah, I do have a bit of both, but the most recent ones I've been getting digitally. So yeah, but yeah, I do like holding a book. It just feels a bit better. Oh, okay. So Fred from How to D&D said that Dawn Forged Cast deleted his YouTube channel. So the alchemist and shaman that he created have probably gone with it as well. So you don't have to go and go and search for them.
Okay, but there is an alchemist. Okay, I remember the name of the book. Ian World, because I mentioned Ian World earlier, where they have their own publishing, and they did have the noble class to develop. But in that same book, it's called A Touch More Class, and they have an alchemist, a full alchemist class in there too that you can play. That kind of does like one subclass is about making bombs, another one is actually making potions, and they have another one that you can check out. I recommend it. They have some fun ideas in there. I don't necessarily know how balanced they are, but they're at least they get the idea of what they're supposed to do across though.
Okay, cool. Any suggestions on horror one shots, especially with Halloween coming up? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Oh, I like horror is like one of those things that I don't. It's not a genre that resonates with me. My group played in a Innistrad campaign. If you really are trying to do a one shot though, and like go complete hard mode, the Murder House, I think that's what it is. It's probably your
one
best.
The Curse of Strahd.
Yeah,
the Death House. I think it's
Death
called.
House. Yeah, that's probably your best bet if you want to just run a one shot and have them survive in a haunted house, because it's deadly. Like it definitely is deadly. But that's probably like the best one. I would say that if it's just going to be a one shot, you guys aren't going to worry about your characters dying or living, then go that route.
Yeah, that's the only one that comes to mind of a pre-written one that I've played. Is the Death House. I did a while back. I will chuck it in the comments. I did a video on how to run a one shot, a horror one shot. I'm sort of now. I made that quite a while ago, and I think there are better systems to run horror than D&D. I think you can do it with D&D, but there's one I have played called, I want to say it's called Seven Candles or something along those lines. And the premise is you have 7 candles and that's the only light in the room. And then as you fail parts of the game, you blow out a candle. So it gets darker and darker, and you obviously set the atmosphere with music and stuff like that. And that was a much better horror experience than D&D, because the problem with D&D and horror is combat can be quite long and completely takes you out of the horror realm, even if you've spent like a while getting the atmosphere right and getting everyone into the mood of horror. The moment you're like, okay, let's fight these zombies, everyone roll initiative, everyone do this, everyone roll your dice and stuff like that, it takes you out of the atmosphere. So there are better systems, I would say, for horror. And I'm pretty sure it's called something along the lines of 7 candles, or I will look it up. But it's
Call of Cthulhu is another one that always pops up for like a really good horror system. So
yeah, I will look that up as we're talking, as we're going through the next question. So we got Jules Burkoff. What Forgotten Realms adventure is best to start off with? We've sort of touched on this a bit. We've got Lost Mines of Fendelver and the Ice Peak one in the Essentials kits. Are there any other ones that you would suggest?
I have a special place in my heart for Storm King's Thunder. You want to fight giants. If you guys are coming off of watching Attack on Titan, it's probably like a good lead into that. It was a very fun open campaign, and it takes you all across the Forgotten Realms, all across the Sword Coast. At least that way we played it. So I think that's a good way to kind of get players involved in that. A lot of the other adventures I've seen really stick you into a single location. Like Descent into Avernus only you're in Baldur's Gate, Candlekeep, and then you're in Avernus, and that's pretty much it. What's it called? Then the two Waterdeep adventures, you're only in Waterdeep, or you're in I think it's Undermountain, under Waterdeep, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. So and then the Feywild, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, you're not even in. You're not even in the Store Coast. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think outside of the obvious two, the Lost Mines of Fendelver and the Essentials kit one, the Ice Peak, the Waterdeep Dragon Heist can be quite good just because you start at level 1 and you go to level 5.
Yeah.
And it's relatively linear, so that that it gives the DM a good chance to practice and stuff like that. So that one can be okay. But yeah, I understand what you're saying about it is just in Waterdeep, so you don't really get to explore D&D as a whole when you just play an urban one. I have found, so it's called 10 Candles, the horror one, not 7 Candles, and I'll put a link to it in the chat in case anyone is interested in that for their upcoming Halloween games. Okay, so we got a rules question now. So Rayanne Pearson has asked, raging automatically gives you resistance against damage. Bear Totem says resistance to all damage except psychic. Does that mean you take quarter damage instead of half?
No. 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 What the Bear Totem ability does is it adds additional damage types to your resistance pool, I guess you can say, of which damage types you're resistant to. So pretty much it makes you resistant to everything except psychic and I believe force damage are the two that you're not going to be resistant against. Resistance does not stack at all. Most effects in 5th edition do not stack, period. So because all resistance does is just cut the damage in half. So if you get 2 instances of resistance, and it's still just 1 instance. So there's very few mechanics that let you stack on top of each other, and they normally flat out tell you that they stack. So but resistance is one of those that it does not.
Yeah, well said. There's nothing for me to add. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Or barbarians would be pretty ridiculous.
Yeah,
they're already pretty tanky.
Yeah, and even then, though, like having resistance, any sort of damage mitigation, period, is stupid good. So the fact that they get resistance to a Bear Totem gets resistance to everything but force and psychic, unless you're fighting mind flayers and people throwing magic missiles at you all the time, you're pretty much set.
Yeah,
they're very, very hard to kill.
Pretty much. Yeah. Okay, we got Tony Smith that is asking how many numbers of monsters can you have per encounter. So what's your view on this? Because
how many numbers of monsters you can have per encounter? You can have as many as you want. Are you going to have a good time doing that though? Running like 100 versus 5. It really just comes down to how you want to balance against your players and the level of difficulty you want against for that encounter. If you want them to breeze by, then obviously less. Pretty much the CR system is kind of, it's probably a thorn in a lot of DM side for 5th edition because it's just not good. It's just not good. It doesn't really balance correctly to the actual play style of players, and doesn't take into consideration magic items and a number of other things. It's just basic. If the characters don't have magic items and just are as is, say they're all level 7 and you have a CR7, that should be a medium or deadly difficulty depending on some of the abilities. In reality, balancing it just comes down to action economy. If you want a hard combat, your monsters need to have more actions than your players. If you want an easier combat, less actions compared to the player actions. So
yeah, I think there is in can't remember what chapter, but in the DMG, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's a little formula to work out how many you can put in, which is okay. I've actually relatively recently, or well, within the last year, started using the minion mechanic from 5th edition, and that's made some encounters feel a lot more substantial, because there's a few which have actual stats and do actual things, and then you can essentially throw 100 zombies at a party and they can actually deal with it, and it feels more like Lord of the Rings, Helm's Deep kind of battle. So if you don't know what that is, essentially every you give all the minions, which would be like a zombie or a bandit or something like that, 1 HP, which means you don't have to track it. So you just track the overall number. So say there's 100 zombies, each of them have 1 HP. You're just tracking 100. Okay, well, they killed 20 of them, so now there's 80, rather than having to count 100 HP bars, which would be absolutely mental. and then they just have really basic actions. So it'd just be like, they're going to try to punch you for a really low amount. And that's worked really well so far. I've been quite enjoying that. So that's another way to do it as well, if you do want more numbers of monsters than the DMG would suggest. Out of D&D has said that resistance can stack, but not with the Barbarian Rage feature. I don't think it could, to be honest.
There's only certain instances where it stacks, but it normally says, or it's not worded in the way that it actually gives you resistance. It'll just say mitigate X amount of damage or something if it's from this damage type, so that it will stack with resistance. But normally, it's very, very hard. There's very, very few abilities that let you do that. But you can technically stack resistance. It just won't be the same 2 mechanics.
Yeah, I understand that. So I just did a very quick Google, and it's an example of that here. It says multiple, and this is from page 197 of the Player's Handbook. It says multiple instances of resistance or vulnerability that affect the same damage type can actually. Let me bring this up. I just realised I'm reading it out to you, and it's quite long. Let me get rid of the cookies. So multiple instances of resistance or vulnerability that affect the same damage type count only 1 for 1 instance. For example, if a creature has resistance to fire damage as well as resistance to all non-magical damage, the damage of non-magical fire is reduced by half against creatures, not reduced by 3/4. So yeah, basically resistance will only stack once, but there are other ways of getting around it. Like I think there's a spell, I can't remember, but yeah, there are ways to get around it, but very few. Okay, on to the next one. So what's your opinion on the custom lineages that they have recently introduced into the game?
Oh, I have like 2 videos on this. I'm for it. I think I understand the traditional and the fears of trying to like maintain a certain feel of what the traditional view of D&D and race and the relations to it, but I don't mind it. I think allowing players to be able to create the character they want so they have fun doing it is the boon to the game. I know people worry about numbers and all that stuff. DMs have enough tools and power to balance that out. It might be a lot more work, which I think Wizards in general needs to do a better job of giving DMs those tools. But in terms of what players can do, custom lineages are fine. They remove a lot of negative connotations that are associated with stats and how we connect and perceive race in real life, and how it's reinforced with certain language in the game. And it's a step forward in kind of decoupling that while still allowing for people to have fun and just build what they want. The custom lineage, Wizards in general still need to do a better job of like fixing their language and how they utilize it, so they don't reinforce negative stereotypes and a certain negative mindset for their races. But in general, I think this is fine. But again, it's a variant rule. You don't need to use it. If you guys want to play a more traditional game or a traditional fantasy game, then have at it. But for others that want to play a different sort of game that want to be able to kind of make orcs and half orcs that aren't tied to certain expectations of what they're meant to be, and that we can change them to be something we want. Like most of the time, it's always half orc barbarian, half orc fighter, or something. We want to play a half orc wizard. We'll be mechanically supported to do it to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's really well said, and I sort of touched on it earlier as well, that a lot of these things they're putting in you don't have to use. Like as a DM and as a group, you can decide to completely ignore this if you're not into it. The fact that they're taking steps to actually put it in is good, and I think what you said was really good actually. That sort of sums it up. And yeah, how to D&D is just said spells, magic items with different sources of resistance can stack to the point that a creature takes no damage, but it is hard to achieve. So yeah, sort of along the same line. Okay, we are going to be wrapping up in a second, so if there are any last minute questions, chuck them in the chat. If not, I have left the last question to Rich Merry, who was a guest on the last one, and he has said, do you drink tea or coffee at the table? Nice simple one to end on if there's no other questions.
Beer, actually. when we play, it's beer. But normally, yeah, it's beer. In terms of like outside of the table, I drink both. But like our version of tea here, and at least in this area, it's sweet tea. It's nothing what you guys have over there. I'm pretty sure you guys consider it trash. Honestly, it's trash. It's just sugar with brown flavor in it. But coffee, that's what gets me going in the morning. So I became part of the coffee bean pod people, fortunately.
That was a very British question from Rich there, asking about tea or coffee. I actually also don't have any of that at the table. We either have alcohol or fizzy drinks, which are bad for you. I've only actually recently become a coffee drinker since becoming a new dad. It turns out coffee helps you a lot. Get going in the morning when you've had little sleep. So I've started drinking that in the morning, which is good. And yeah, we do have sweet tea over here, or we call it iced tea. Is that a different thing?
Yeah, that's the same.
Okay, yeah, we do have sweet tea over here, but it tastes nothing like tea. It's just a sweet sugary drink, really. Which it's okay. It's okay. Well, I don't think we have any more questions coming in. How to D&D said goodbye, all the best. Thank you for coming by, Fred. Really appreciated. And Rich as well, saying coffee is his morning ritual, which I think that is pretty much everyone's morning ritual nowadays, especially once you get to adulthood. Anyway, he changes from Coca-Cola to coffee. Cool. Thank you very much for coming by, Josh. Do you want to just let everyone know where they can find you? I have put all of your links down in the description so people can check you out there, but if you just let everyone know.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube on Dungeoneer's Pack. You can search it up there. I'm fairly active in the community section there. Also, I'm the most active on the Dungeoneer's Pack official Discord. So if you can join there, everybody's more than welcome to join in. If you want to just talk about D&D, anything not D&D, you need help developing in characters or anything, there's a nice community that's willing to jump in and help. I will always jump in and help out also. And all my socials are in the description below. I'm on Facebook, Dungeoneers Pack YT there, Twitter, DPack YT, and on Instagram, I'm just Dungeoneers Pack. So you can find me everywhere.
Cool. Thank you very much for coming by, and we will make sure to get you on again. I think this was a really good session. So if you are up for it, we'll get you on again.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we will be back next week as well, same time. And we have another Josh actually from J&J Tabletop next week joining us. Nice. So thank you everyone for coming, and we will see you next time.
Bye.